Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We thank you, everyone, for your presence here today as we celebrate our 1 year portal to liberation. We are beyond grateful and honored to introduce our next speaker, one who I admire a lot, one who I look up to tremendously, Mimi Kim, who is the founder of Creative Interventions and a co founder of INCITE. She has been a longtime activist, advocate, and researcher challenging gender based violence at its intersection with state violence and creating community accountability, transformative justice, and other community based alternatives to criminalization. As a second generation Korean American, she locates her political work in global solidarity with feminist anti imperialist struggles, seeking not only the end of oppression, but of the creation of liberation here and now. Mimi is also an associate professor of social work at California State University, Long Beach. Everyone, please welcome Mimi Kim. I'm excited to have her here and share all their wisdom.
Hello, everybody. All right, I'm going to assume that's okay. I'm looking at the chat and I don't see anything, so I'm going to assume it's okay. Sorry, we've had a lot of technical difficulties getting here. Yeah, I had my own Google Chrome did not want to get me here, so I had to use another browser, but I'm here with you today. I'm really, really happy, really honored to be here with you at Asian Solidarity Collective. And I'm in LA right now, big Bay Area person, but I've lived in LA since 2014. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you doing such amazing collective work in San Diego. I had to teach this morning, so I hopped on a little bit later, but was just getting so much out of all the work that you're doing in San Diego, much of which I didn't know about. So I feel like I've really joined in your community, and I hope that I can bring something to you all to keep up the solidarity with us a little bit further north, and for all of us across this nation, of course, in this globe, to do the work that we need to do. What I wanted to do today, it's a keynote, so I don't have very much time. I have to think about what might be the right thing to bring in for the moment. And I decided what I wanted to do today was to do something a little bit different, but something I've done before, and maybe share a story that some of you might already be familiar with. As Candy said, thank you so much for that beautiful intro. I've been doing this work for a really long time, so I think at this point I'm coming in as an elder and somebody who's been through a lot of different iterations of what we're the Asian American liberation movement here in the United States, in solidarity with people across the globe, but in particular to Korea, and the work in transformative justice that so many people have already been tied to and talked about today. I'm going to start with a story. This story it's not a new one, but it might be new to you. It's actually a story that I had the really good fortune to collect as I was starting Creative Interventions, which some of you may be familiar with. I ask you to look up us at creative-interventions.org, where we have our toolkit for free and actually these stories as well. But I just want to bring in another tone and remind us how we've been doing this work for so long, how we've been doing the work of abolition, how we've been doing the work of transformative justice, because we had to, because we knew what we were up against, and we were always resilient, we were always rebellious, we were always counting on each other, and we were always harming each other as well. I don't want to take away from the reality of that, because I think that as we're doing our work, as we take into account not only the kinds of harms that are continuously perpetuated against us by the state, by the system, by racism, by colonialism, by sexism, all of the isms, but that we've internalized them as well. And that part of what we need to do in order to move forward and strengthen our movement is to take account ourselves and do the work of building. It's not separate from any of the work that Leila was talking about. She really made the connections as well. They made the connections as well. I want to do that from a slightly different angle. So I'm going to share the story that somebody shared with me from New Zealand. I had the luck to go there once in my life. I was called to talk about some of the community accountability work we were doing in the United States, and I just thought I felt like I was very much inspired by the work that I had been hearing about from the Maori community. They're very much known as some of the people that started what we now know as restorative justice. But I think that, not surprisingly, they might not recognize what we practice as restorative justice as having anything to do with what they created. And also, I saw that our systems were going in and our nonprofits were going in and telling them what they were doing is wrong and trying to recreate our systems of criminalization and take away from theirs, telling them that we had the right way. And I'm saying we as the United States and as an imperial power. This still continues today. And I'm just happy to know that we've made some progress in at least naming some of the things we've done all along as the way forward for us. So this is a story. It's called a small story. I'm not going to try to say the words that are in Maori, but use the translations that I was offered by the storyteller. It goes like this. We live in a town, but many of my husband's extended family live in the valley where he grew up about 40 kilometers away. My husband and his brother are renowned for a number of things, one being how they extend the life of their cars and vans using highly technical items like string and wire. Another, how they share these vehicles for a variety of tasks, such as moving furniture or transporting relatives, building materials, tractor parts, traditional herbal medicines, eels, vegetables, dogs, and pigs, dead or alive. They are renowned for being people of the people, the ones to call on in times of trouble and death, the ones who will solve the problem and make the plan. They travel to and from town, to the coast to dive for seafood, to endless meetings, to visit extended family, along the many kilometers of dirt roads in and around the valley, through flood or dust depending on the season, in those patched up, beat up prized cars. There are a number of things to know about the valley. One is that the last 33 children in the world of their small sub-tribe to grow up and be educated on their own lands go to school here, despite government efforts to close the school. Another is that the valley is known to outsiders and insiders as Patuwahine, literally meaning to beat women. And this is not said as a joke. The mountain for this valley is named as the doorway spirits pass through on their way to their final departure from this life. This valley is also the valley where my husband and his siblings were beaten at school for speaking their first language. It is the valley their mother sent them to so they would be safe from their father, back to her people. It is where they milked cows, pulled a plow, fed pigs, but often went hungry, and were stock whipped, beaten, and worse. My brother-in-law still lives in the valley, in a group of houses next to the school, so it's no surprise that one of the cars would be parked by these houses, right by where the children play. Perhaps also not a surprise that while playing that time-old game of rock throwing, our 8-year-old nephew shattered the back window of the car. If I'd been listening, I probably would have heard the oh and ah of the other children that accompanied the sound of glass breaking from town. And if I'd really been tuned in, I would have heard the rapid, frightened heartbeat of that boy as well. His mother is my husband's cousin, and she was on the phone to us right away. She was anxious to assure us that that boy would get it when his father came home. His father is a big man with a pig hunter's hands who hoists his pigs onto a meat hook unaided. He's a man of movement and action, not a man for talking. Those hands would carry all the force of proving that he was a man who knew how to keep his children in their place. Beating that boy would be his way of telling us that he had also learned his own childhood lessons well. So before he got home, we burned up the phone lines, sister to sister, cousin to cousin, brother-in-law to sister-in-law, wife to husband, brother to brother. This was because my husband and his brother knew that there are some lessons you are taught as a child that should not be passed on. The sound of calloused hand on tender flesh, the whispers of watching sisters, the smell of your own fear, the taste of your own blood and sweat as you lie in the dust, useless, useless, better not born. This is a curriculum like no other, a set of lessons destined to repeat until you are granted the grace of insight and choose to embrace new learning. So when the father of that boy came home and heard the story of the window, that boy was protected by our combined love and good humor, by the presence of a senior uncle, by invitations to decide how to get the window fixed in the shortest time for the least money. Once again, phone calls were exchanged with an agreement being made on appropriate restitution. How a barrel of diesel turns into a car window is a story for another time. Next time my husband drove into the valley was to pick up the car, and that boy was an anxious witness to his rival. My husband also has very big hands, hands that belong to a man who has spent most of his life outdoors. These were hands that reached out to that boy to hug, not hurt. A lot of bad things still happen in the valley, but more and more they are being named and resisted. Many adults who learn their early lessons there will never return. For people of the land, this is a profound loss. Our first identifiers on meeting are not our own names, but those of our mountains, rivers, subtribe, and tribe. To be totally separate from these is a dislocation of spirit for the already wounded. This is only a small story that took place in an unknown valley, not marked on many maps. When these small stories are told and repeated, so our lives join and connect. When we choose to embrace new learning and use our bigness to heal, not hurt, then we are growing grace and wisdom on the earth. Di Grinnell, Whangarei, New Zealand. So I want to give you all just a moment, to sit with that story. It's a powerful one. I think it's one that reminds us of so many things that we know, and that we forget. How we can rely on our own people, how we have to be creative, how we have to connect to each other. And it's just so many of the messages that I heard as I was listening in today. My father's a refugee from North Korea, and my mother is in many ways a refugee of domestic violence from the South. I have very few family members in the US, and I've had to really recreate my sense of family and connection and chosen family. Many among Koreans who share really similar kinds of yearning for community and creation of new community. I have so many family members to whom I may never talk, family members still in North Korea. So for me, the thought of community is so precious and always so fleeting. It's something so far away if I think of family members that are in North Korea that I've heard about, but that I may never ever know. Something I think about as I'm doing my work in transformative justice and abolition, knowing that the only answer we have really is not only to dismantle systems of oppression, but to build and rebuild and reconnect with what we have that's so precious in our own. So I heard those repeated themes. I know that for us, and I think for myself, the US is a land of forgetting. So many times we forget. We forget who we are. We're told different stories about who we are. And if you have parents and family like I have, they didn't want to remember. They didn't want to remember the pain. And so we become so vulnerable and malleable to the stories we get now with Stop Asian Hate. What we're told not only is the reality of violence, which we know and understand so well, but what we're told is the solution to violence is to support a hate crimes bill. a hate crimes bill that was supported by one of the few bipartisan, about the only thing that came together is yes, a hate crimes bill. Hey, let's uplift violence against Asians who we really don't care about any other day of the year. But this is in service of anti-Blackness, in service of looking towards the police as a solution to safety and a return to pro-criminalization strategies. We cannot just go and say, yes, hashtag stop Asian hate without thinking what that message has become right now. So really turn to you. I know I don't have, I think I already surpassed my time. I want to just uplift the messages earlier that we want to build supportive relationships, keep each other safer, and uplift ourselves, our own community organizations, our own communities, our own selves, our own stories, our own skills, and build those connections, look at each other, take a breath now, and understand what preciousness we have in our communities and how we have to turn to each other. And while we're doing the hard work, we also do the beautiful work of celebrating who we've been and who we will be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mimi. Oh, I don't know. Is it me? Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Mimi, for such powerful words. It really resonated with me, and the reconnecting and how we're the land of forgetting, and reminding us of who we are and how to get reconnected. I appreciate that, and leaving us with those words today, because I think that's what this program is all about, right? It's rebuilding anew. Thank you for the continued work that you're doing. We definitely are going to stay in touch with you, Mimi. Appreciate you being here today. Thank you.